In part 3, we will expand upon what we've already learned about wellness and being a wellness coach by talking about some of those fundamentals of wellness coaching and also talking about getting permission from our client to initiate the change process. In order to be an effective wellness coach, you have to understand different components of what the job entails. And the first one is to understand those social components of wellness from within the client. And this would include how our client presents themselves in different environments with others, and also includes behaviors that might need to be explored further in case they put the client at risk for hitting barriers or anything related to a particular behavior change goal. A greatly untapped portion of wellness coaching remains in the creative concepts that are applied by coaches in the field. This involves both one-on-one and corporate coaching styles. Being able to think creatively allows the wellness coach to problem solve and to strategize with the client. In many ways, the most important creative factor for the coach comes through during the vision process as well as barrier and obstacle solution process. In some cases, wellness coaches entrenched in corporate environments are forced to come up with creative means to engage not just individuals, but large groups of people in terms of balancing the approach to wellness. So we're talking about all the different components of wellness that must come together to not only create wellness, but also to be successful with behavior change. Our clients will come to us to help them manage lifestyle and behavior concerns, and this will make up the bulk of our work. However, the client's own responsibilities to part of the process are implied, and you will know very early on in the coaching process if your client is meeting the obligation related to the responsibilities that they bear. This will be seen in follow-up conversations as part of the commitment process. Right now, due to all of the excitement and interest that's generated within the wellness coaching field, we have a chance to impact our future, and this requires that we understand our past roots. Where we have been seems to be really different than what we have come to today in terms of wellness coaching, and the potential for both science and application in the field greatly contribute to the direction that wellness coaching can take going forward. Being able to share experience and to have access to primary references or resources will allow a wellness coach to utilize all tools needed for a behavior change. In an industry that is currently struggling for credibility across the board, this is a necessary step for us to get right at this time. We have talked about different definitions for coaching, and we've described some different forms of coaching, and that wellness coaching allows our client to both learn and grow on their own terms. And in fact, the coaching process is just that, one of learning and growing. So in this way, another role of the coach is facilitator of not just behavior change, but of learning too. This requires that we develop close professional relationships with our clients in order to be able to both inspire and motivate them toward lasting behavior change. Since we have come to know that the expert approach in itself doesn't work, this doesn't mean that we don't have to show a level of expertise in our coaching abilities. As you go through this curriculum, you'll notice that there are a lot of different needs for behavior change and strategies that are required to be effective as a wellness coach. Therefore, we turn to using the trans-theoretical model to address behavior change, as it provides a very unique parallel to how we deliver coaching services. In your reading so far, you've probably learned a lot about what coaches do, but ultimately, your goal is to get your client to their wellness goals and to their outcome goals. Typically, this will involve some indicators that generally remain the same for most people. These would include nutrition, exercise, weight control, and stress management, among a few others. And yes, there will be times when your clients bring other items that they view as important to change related to their wellness, but these topics listed will typically be part of that experience too. Many times we look at wellness coaching in terms of how it is similar to life coaching or health coaching or even personal training. But wellness coaching is decidedly different. Try to come to look at wellness coaching as having a conversation with your client, because that's what we specialize in. We sit with our client and we talk with them and ask them a lot of questions. This is also partly what is meant by the term motivational interviewing. Naturally, depending on your business delivery model, logistics need to be resolved in order to provide coaching services to clients with respect to their privacy and accessibility. We cannot coach clients if we don't have this. Once you have decided on the type of coaching deliverables that you would like to provide as a service, you will need to secure a space to meet with your client. It's important to be mindful of your client's privacy while also being aware of how they may feel if they are confined to an uninviting space. So balance factors even into the small details of where you set up shop to coach. Typically, your consults will consist of information gathering, and this will be loaded up more in the beginning of the process as you extract or elicit goals and visions from your client. Remember to make use of that one-on-one or face-to-face format as often as possible because it is this type of coaching that allows the client to feel personally connected to you. During this time, when you have a secure space and you have gathered enough information from your client, you can then create strategies and programs to help the client toward their wellness goals. In this way, the process is different than any other forms of coaching. Your client's vision or their goals can be anything that's tied to their lifestyle. Now, you'll never stop being surprised by the things that your clients present to you. Remember that we encourage the use of a more holistic approach, including the mind, body, and spirit, but that does not mean that we explore deeply into our client's spirituality, but instead you may find that certain topics that are brought up will tend to creep into the area of their own personal spirituality perspectives. From your view, an effective wellness coach will incorporate the 5 items listed on the slide before you as a basic template for all clients and all coaching interactions. We will spend a fair amount of time talking about behavioral components that are influenced by psychology. It is important to embrace the fact that you will need to at least understand some components of behavior and psychology when paired together with wellness coaching. This is simply due to the fact that for our client, change can be extremely difficult, and changing behaviors is probably one of the most difficult parts of the coaching experience for our clients to go through. There are reasons for this that need to be understood. The first one would be the demands of everyday life. Since our lives have become so hectic and busy in modern times, we sometimes struggle to manage not only day-to-day activities, but our wellness tends to take a back seat to other areas of concern that we feel are more important. Sometimes our clients also tend to these peripheral needs so that the real issue of changing unwanted behaviors can be ignored. But this doesn't mean that they are not important or that the client will not be affected by them. Furthermore, the level of intensity needed to make behavior change and to sustain it can be very intense, requiring a level of commitment greater than what most people are typically accustomed to fitting into their hectic or busy lifestyles. Our clients are bombarded with different health-related products and services, making it really difficult for them to decipher which is the best or which is the most accurate or relevant for them. Therefore, portions of your day and your coaching experiences will involve addressing the intellectual wellness of your client as you provide the facts and dispel myths tied to healthy living and wellness. Our clients will typically present obstacles, and some of them may seem very real to them, but an experienced wellness coach will help clients to foresee obstacles and strategize around them. Also, helping clients to understand that some obstacles and barriers may not be valid could prove to be helpful, or they may be exaggerated in terms of how the client perceives them. Lastly, as a challenge to the change process, if your client shows a history of repeated failures with trying to change something about their behavior, one of a few things can happen. The client may feel like it's too difficult to make changes and may not try. Or your client might lack the confidence needed to begin another effort at behavior change. Unfortunately for clients with a lengthy history of repeated failures, the odds of future failures repeating is very real and needs to be resolved with different strategies or approaches. In the past, wellness coaches would typically rely on using what we call the expert approach to wellness, and that would include addressing more of those intellectual components of wellness by providing the client with information or trying to educate the client on why behaviors are not optimal or why they might be risky. But typically we see that this hasn't worked because our clients will normally know what they want or need to change, and they just sometimes don't know how to start the process or don't have resources for facilitating behavior change. Since we know that change starts in the mind with a decision, we also have to be aware of those psychological factors that influence behavior. Without this sort of interaction with our client, we cannot expect that their results will be optimized or that they will have successful behavior change. If your client is one with a history of repeated failures, they may lack the confidence that's needed to change risky behaviors now. But even a client that doesn't have this history of repeated failures sometimes can feel that change is simply too hard or too difficult for them because in the past they may have lacked the knowledge for how to change, or they lack the motivation and support currently to support behavior change. One thing that we've learned through coaching evolution is that simply telling people to change does not work. Therefore, your coaching strategies have to involve a component of building your client's confidence level. This can be done by motivational interviewing, and once again, just by simply asking the client what has worked for them in the past or what behaviors they are currently doing well or right. As you can see, as we start to build on all that's required to be a wellness coach, a well-planned wellness coaching model is what provides the coach and the client the tools to be successful at a particular behavior change. Let's continue on now to focus a little bit on the beginning of the interaction relationship that you will start with your client, and where do you begin to interact and coach a client toward peak wellness. Many times new coaches wonder just where they should start or where they can begin with a client and to work with them on concerns tied to their wellness. Basically, you start by simply having a conversation with the client, but this conversation is one where you do more listening than talking. One practice you might find useful is to listen until your mind shuts off or until your mind stops talking. This means being able to refrain from commenting on what's being stated from the client until they have been able to move through all levels of communication needed to be able to completely express themselves. Sometimes we begin to formulate what we're going to say back to a client while they're talking about an idea or a problem or a concern. But when we do that, we cannot be listening at the same time. So having highly evolved listening skills is essential to wellness coaching. The art of asking questions simply complements the process. Wellness coaches never tell a client what to do. We simply draw from the client what they want and then provide them with direction. We also provide them with clarity as we question them about why they want to make changes. When we are able to distance ourselves in this professional manner, we are also able to avoid taking responsibility for the client's behavior changes and put the process back to them for resolution. Maybe more so than in any health-related field, the fitness industry is extremely closely related to wellness coaching, and this is not just simply due to the fact that exercise and physical activity are large components of wellness, but also those skill sets from professionals working in the fitness industry have brought us to understand how we can more effectively interact with our clients. And this is especially true in the area of establishing goals. Now, in light of the fact that professionals in both the fitness industry and wellness coaching work toward an outcome goal made up of several short-term goals, you might be able to more clearly see those parallels within these two industries. Essentially, interaction and intervention styles as well as health sciences are shared to a great extent. Also similar is the issue or concern of retention. We don't really need to describe retention in terms of fitness, but from the wellness perspective, retention could be seen in our client's ability to maintain a healthy behavior change once an outcome goal has been reached. But one area of interest from the fitness industry that may benefit wellness coaching are those strategies that wellness coaches use during the interim stages of behavior change. In fitness, when someone makes a decision to become more fit, they join a fitness club and they tend to start out very strong with the best of intentions. But we all know the statistics begin to show a drop in compliance after a relatively short period of time. This represents point A of a gap that ends with point B being the outcome goal. Wellness coaches are better equipped to coach a client through these interim stages because the behaviors that are required to change are addressed and hopefully resolved. In fitness, we don't require or teach trainers to understand these stages of change to a degree that allows us to ensure that personal training clients' interests are retained. While this is a problem in the fitness industry, this is an actual opportunity in the wellness industry. There are 3 ways that people experience change, and by saying this, we should restate that there are 3 main drivers of change. Now, let's take a look at each one so that you can better understand ways that your clients will go through the change process. Change by crisis is the type of behavior change that is rooted in events that come into our lives and are generally considered critical. This could be something like a very serious medical condition or the death of a loved one or spouse. Anything that our client perceives as a serious reality in their life runs the risk of initiating change if something in the situation requires it. But there's a really large component of change by crisis that is relative to the perspective of the client. So it's not our job as the wellness coach to determine the gravity of relevance, and this is done by the client. So something that we see as a small thing could be monumental in the eyes of our client. Change by osmosis is more of a gradual process. Now, as an example, you may have a client that smokes. Now, in most parts of the globe, we know that smoking poses serious health risks to our client. Therefore, attempts to regulate it has meant that there are places where people who smoke can no longer go. In this way, society is telling a smoker, or your client in this case, that their behavior is unacceptable. It doesn't matter if your client agrees with this or not, and in fact, chances are your client already knows the dangers of smoking. But when your client continually feels the results of not being able to smoke where they would freely be able to enjoy this habit, it may become something that begins to penetrate the client's belief system and start to encourage the client toward making that decision to change a habit, in this case, to quit smoking. So we see the possibility for some situations to motivate change, but it is just that, highly situational. But change by osmosis does occur, it's just that it's a much slower process. Change by vision is the cornerstone of wellness coaching and is probably the most single important aspect involved in behavior change. Now, since this requires a vision of what lies ahead for the client, being able to coach your client toward this ability to see forward is essential. Change by vision also has elements closely related to both impulse control and delayed gratification due to the fact that a client will likely need to practice or employ both of these elements as they are working toward their vision or their outcome goals. Vision is extremely important to the coaching process, and by helping a client to realize their vision, we ask them to create a picture first of where they would like to be if certain behaviors were changed. Now, when creating a vision, encourage the client to be mindful of all of the items listed here because this will persuade the client to think more deeply about their vision and to define it with more clarity. Always have the client write down their vision statement, and when they do so, instruct them to write it in the first person. The reason for this is pretty simple. This will ensure that the client is seeing their vision for what they want and not what others around them might be telling them that they should see as part of their vision. In this way, it becomes more personal and allows the client to own their vision. It also provides and requires the client take responsibility for their own change efforts. After you have worked through the initial stages of trying to get your client to write a vision statement, it's then essential for the coach to ask the client why. Why does the client want to change a particular behavior now? Oftentimes, our clients will come back with a statement tied to "because I should," and the use of the word should could imply that the behavior change or goal is being done for a reason that it's external to the client and not coming from within. In other words, it might be something that's being done or attempted to satisfy someone else. When we are able to clarify vision for the client in the proper way, it has more meaning in terms of the decisions that are made because they are internally driven. This will allow the client to be better motivated and inspired for behavior change. Your next step in learning to coach is to understand how much information will be coming to you from the client during that first consult and how much you need to tap into that first hour to be able to get all of the different pieces to the puzzle that the client is presenting for you and to be able to provide the missing pieces in terms of behavior change. This will create a more efficient and powerful coaching experience for the client, and this will also help the client to realize with greater clarity what their vision should be.